They thought their secret was safe, buried behind a password and a smile. But secrets have a funny way of showing up when the lights are brightest. I didn't scream. I didn't break. I just pressed play, and their perfect wedding became the scene of their own betrayal. Before I tell you how I turned silence into justice, hit like, share this story, and subscribe. You don't want to miss how this ended. I used to believe that love, when real, had a kind of quiet magic to it, the kind you don't need to question. Lyra and I had built a story together over 4 years, one that felt soft and strong at the same time. It wasn't loud, it wasn't wild, it was steady, like a familiar heartbeat you never notice until it stops. We met young, built dreams brick by brick, and somewhere along the way, I stopped imagining a future that didn't have her in it. I thought what we had was unshakable. I still remember the way she used to smile whenever we talked about the wedding. Her eyes would light up like the world was unfolding just for us. She'd talk about flowers and music and the way she wanted to walk down the aisle. And I would just watch her because seeing her happy made everything else feel small. I trusted her with everything I had. My time, my heart, my future. And when you give someone that much of yourself, it never crosses your mind that one day they might hand it back to you broken. I won't pretend we were perfect. We argued, we got tired, life got messy. But even in the chaos, I thought we were solid. There was a rhythm to us. A quiet certainty that no matter what came, we'd choose each other. So when she slipped that engagement ring on her finger, I thought it was the beginning of everything. What I didn't know was, it was also the beginning of the end. It's strange how betrayal doesn't always come crashing through the door. Sometimes it walks in softly, wearing the same smile you fell in love with. It holds your hand, tells you it loves you, and looks at you like nothing's wrong. Meanwhile, the truth sits in the shadows, patient. Back then, I had no idea what was waiting for me. I didn't know that the same woman who planned a future with me was also writing an entirely different story behind my back. But fate has a way of bringing secrets to light, and sometimes it does it when everyone's watching. Before I tell you how I found out, before I tell you how everything unraveled, let me just say this. If you've ever trusted someone blindly, I know exactly how that feels. And trust me, the day I stopped being blind changed everything. The night I found out didn't feel special. There were no warning signs, no dramatic music, no gut instinct screaming at me. It was just quiet. She'd fallen asleep on the couch, her phone resting on the armrest beside her. We'd spent the evening talking about guest lists, centerpieces, and honeymoon plans. I remember how warm that moment felt, so ordinary, so safe. I got up to grab a glass of water, and that's when it happened. A single notification lit up her screen. One message, one name. Callan read, it didn't mean anything at first. She had friends. I wasn't the type to snoop. But something about the preview froze me. It wasn't just words. It was a small thumbnail of a video blurred, but enough to make my heartbeat stutter. I wish I could say I hesitated. I didn't. I picked up the phone, entered the code I'd known for years, and opened it. The moment the video started, everything inside me shifted. It was her. Her voice, her laugh, her face, and him. Not a stranger, but someone she'd once described as a close friend. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't something I could unsee. Every second burned like acid. I stood there, not breathing, not moving. Just watching as the woman I loved shared something with someone else that I thought was mine alone. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I didn't even drop the phone. I just stared at her face on that screen, smiling like she'd never smiled at me. That's the kind of pain that doesn't explode. It carves through you quietly, making you question every single thing you thought was real. I looked at her lying there, asleep, her hand resting near her engagement ring, and I felt this cold distance form between us, a space that could never be bridged again. People talk about heartbreak like it's loud, but sometimes it's silent. It's a slow, suffocating ache that sits behind your ribs, pressing in until you can barely stand. That night, I learned that love doesn't end with a fight. Sometimes it ends with a screen lighting up in the dark, and a truth you never asked to see. The days after that night felt like I was living in two separate worlds. On the outside, everything looked the same routines, the same smiles, the same soft goodnights. But inside me, something had split wide open. I'd wake up next to her, feel the warmth of her hand brushing mine, and all I could see was that video, that laugh. That betrayal burned into the back of my mind like a brand that wouldn't fade. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I couldn't. There was this heavy, bitter silence inside me that words couldn't touch. Every time she talked about the wedding, I'd just nod, pretending I was listening. While a storm built behind my calm expression, it's strange how lies can live so comfortably beside the truth. She had no idea I already knew. She had no idea her every smile, her every I love you was falling on a man who no longer believed it. Nights were the worst. I'd lie awake while she slept peacefully beside me. My chest felt tight, like every breath I took carried the weight of what she'd done. My hands would clench without me realizing it. My mind would replay that video again and again, looking for something, a reason, an explanation, anything that could make it hurt less. But there was nothing. Just the sound of my own heart breaking quietly. Then something inside me shifted. The grief began to harden. The pain started to turn into something sharper, steadier. I began noticing little things I'd ignored before, late replies, unexplained absences, subtle changes in the way she said my name. They'd been there all along. I just hadn't wanted to see them. I started collecting everything, messages, call logs, location histories. Not because I needed more proof. I already knew the truth. But I needed control. I needed to hold the pieces of this mess in my own hands, not hers. That was when I realized something important. Betrayal doesn't just destroy trust. It forges resolve. I wasn't going to break down in front of her. I wasn't going to beg for answers she didn't deserve to give. I was going to decide how this story ended, not her, not him, me. There's a moment in every heartbreak where the pain stops screaming and starts whispering. Mine came one night when I was sitting alone in the living room, the house wrapped in silence. I stared at her phone in my hand, the same device that had detonated my entire world, and I realized something. She had taken everything from me without hesitation. My trust, my love, my certainty. But the ending? That would belong to me. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to throw things or break down on the kitchen floor begging her to explain. That's what she expected. That's what people like her always expect for the one who trusted them to fall apart. But I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of watching me crumble. I was going to stand taller than the lie she built around me. I spent nights studying every file, every hidden folder, every carefully deleted message she thought no one would find. She'd buried their secret well, but not deep enough. I pulled everything out piece by piece, like unthreading the fabric of a story she thought she owned. And then I found the one video, the same one that tore me open. I saved it, backed it up, cleaned it, not to hurt myself again, but to make sure it was ready when the time came. Revenge didn't feel fiery. It felt cold, controlled, precise, like slipping into a perfectly tailored suit of quiet resolve. This wasn't about humiliation. This was about truth, about holding a mirror in front of her and letting her own reflection do the damage. She walked around for weeks planning the wedding, completely unaware that the ground beneath her was already cracking. Every laugh she gave me, every I love you she whispered, it was just adding kindling to the fire I'd light at the perfect moment. People say the best revenge is living well. I disagree. The best revenge is silence. The kind that lets the truth scream louder than any words ever could. I didn't want to ruin her wedding out of spite. I wanted to let her lies collapse under their own weight. And I knew exactly when to make that happen. The morning of our wedding felt almost surreal. The world outside was glowing with sunlight, warm and golden, as if mocking the storm quietly resting inside me. She looked radiant, dressed in white, surrounded by laughter. Her smile brighter than I'd ever seen. Everyone saw a bride in love. I saw a woman standing on a cliff edge she didn't even know existed. And the best part? She had no idea I wasn't standing beside her anymore. I was standing above it all, holding the truth like a blade behind my back, silent, patient, steady. All day, people came to me, shaking my hand, congratulating me, calling me the luckiest man alive. I smiled. I thanked them. My mask was flawless. If anyone looked closely, maybe they'd have noticed the stillness in my eyes. But no one did. That's the thing about weddings. People only see what they want to believe. They saw a man in love. They didn't see the man who had already buried that love weeks ago. She floated around the room, touching hands, laughing softly, stealing glances at me like we were the center of some fairy tale. And in a way, we were just not the kind she thought. Every second that passed brought me closer to the moment I'd chosen. Every vow she rehearsed in the mirror, every delicate laugh, it was all building toward one strike of truth she'd never forget. I kept my distance emotionally, but not physically. I stood beside her, whispered the right words, smiled in the right places. The perfect groom. It almost felt like a performance I'd rehearsed for years. And in some twisted way, I guess I had. She thought this day belonged to her. But it didn't. It belonged to the truth. When the ceremony ended, when the celebration began, she squeezed my hand, and for a brief moment, I wondered if she felt the quiet beneath my skin. But she didn't. She was too wrapped up in the fantasy she'd built on lies. In me. I was calm, focused. The world was about to shift beneath her feet, and she was still dancing in a dream. She had written her story, but I had chosen the ending. There's a kind of silence that settles over a room right before everything breaks. It's not loud. It's not sharp. It's a soft, fragile, quiet, like the air itself is holding its breath. That's exactly how it felt when I signaled the DJ to stop the music. The laughter faded. The chatter fell away. Dozens of faces turned toward the big screen. No one, not even her, had the faintest idea what was about to happen. She stood beside me, hand wrapped around mine, glowing like the star of a perfect love story. And then I let go. I cleared my throat gently, smiled just enough to keep them curious, and said there was a little surprise video. I could see the excitement in her face, the kind that only someone with nothing to hide should have. For a moment, she actually believed this was about us, about love, about memories, about a future. She had no idea it was about the truth finally catching up to her. The lights dimmed. The screen lit up. And then, frame by frame, her secret played in front of everyone. No edits to soften the blow. No music to romanticize the betrayal. Just raw, unfiltered reality. Her laughter filled the room, not the sweet laugh she gave me, but the one she gave him. Her voice. His hands. Their whispers. Their sin. Gasps cracked through the silence like breaking glass. Someone dropped a drink. A woman covered her mouth. I didn't need to look at her. I felt her body tense beside me. The way someone tenses when the world suddenly turns against them. Her fingers twitched like she wanted to stop it, but it was far too late. And then the whispers began. Then shouts. A chair scraped loudly. Someone cursed Callan's name. I watched the shock ripple across faces like a storm tearing through a calm sea. She turned to me, pale and shaking, searching my eyes for mercy. There was none left to give. I didn't scream. I didn't explain. I didn't need to. The truth was speaking for me, louder than any words I could ever say. I simply stood there, watching as the fairy tale she built crumbled in front of everyone. All it took was pressing play. The moment the video ended, the silence didn't return. It shattered. The entire room seemed to crack open like glass under pressure. People started talking all at once, some shouting, some whispering, some staring in stunned disbelief. The warmth of the wedding had evaporated, leaving behind something raw, cold, and real. I didn't move. I didn't have to. The storm I'd been carrying inside me had finally stepped out into the open. She stumbled back a little, her eyes wide and wet, like she'd just been pulled out of a dream. Her makeup was perfect minutes ago. Now it looked fragile, streaking under the weight of her panic. She tried to say something, but no words came out. What could she possibly say to undo what the world had just seen? Around us, guests looked at her with the kind of judgment that cuts deeper than any slap. And then came Callan. He tried to step forward to explain, to lie his way out of a truth that needed no explanation. One of her relatives shouted at him, loud, sharp, furious. Another guest called her name, their voice shaking with disbelief. Someone pushed a chair. Someone cursed. It wasn't a wedding anymore. It was a reckoning. She reached out toward me, her voice finally cracking through the noise. My name left her lips like a desperate prayer, but there was nothing in me left to answer her with. I didn't give her rage. I didn't give her forgiveness either. I gave her exactly what she gave me, silence. The perfect image she'd crafted was falling apart piece by piece. The people who adored her were now questioning everything. The family that trusted her was turning away, and the man she'd chosen in the shadows couldn't even look her in the eye. Karma doesn't need a grand entrance. It just needs the right moment to stand quietly in the center of the room and let the truth do its work. I adjusted my cufflink, took a deep breath, and walked past her. No drama, no backward glance. He had written this ending herself. That night, the wedding didn't just end. It imploded. And for the first time in weeks, I felt free. The days after the wedding felt eerily quiet. No more endless calls about flower arrangements or last-minute seating plans. No forced smiles. No pretending. It was like someone had finally cut the wires holding a weight over my chest. Everything was still. Not because the world had stopped, but because I finally had. The chaos that had consumed me for weeks had burned itself out. All that was left were ashes, and a strange kind of peace. She tried to call. Text even showed up once at the apartment. I never opened the door. There's a kind of closure that doesn't come from talking. It comes from not needing to. I didn't owe her a conversation. She had spoken plenty already, just not with words. Her choices had been loud enough. And so my silence became my final answer. No shouting match. No tearful goodbye. Just a quiet ending, cold and clean. People talked, of course. Some were shocked. Some said they always suspected something. Others tried to dig for details like betrayal was gossip entertainment. I didn't give them what they wanted. I didn't need to. The truth was already out there, etched into the memory of every guest who stood in that room. I didn't need to defend myself. I didn't need to humiliate her further. I had done what I came to do. Let the truth speak. And the truth had a way of echoing on its own. Somewhere along the way, the anger faded. Not because I forgave her, but because she no longer mattered enough to keep the fire alive. I started going on quiet walks at night again. I started sleeping through the night without waking up to the weight of her lies pressing against my chest. I was no longer the man she betrayed. I was just me again. Its strange revenge doesn't always feel triumphant. Sometimes it just feels like breathing again after being underwater too long. I didn't destroy her world. She did that all on her own. All I did was hold up a mirror and step aside. In the ashes of everything she burned, I found something I didn't expect to find again. My own peace. The room that had once been filled with laughter, betrayal, and confrontation was now quiet. Almost too quiet. The air carried the faint echo of everything that had happened. The video, the confessions, the screaming. I stood near the shattered glass table, breathing slowly, feeling the weight of silence press against my chest. My wife sat slumped on the edge of the couch, mascara streaked across her cheeks. Her dress wrinkled, and her once polished image completely cracked. The man she'd risked everything for had already disappeared into the night, leaving her with nothing but a broken marriage and a ruined reputation. Karma didn't need to scream. It whispered. When the truth comes, it doesn't always arrive with fire. Sometimes it walks in softly, but it burns just the same. I looked at her one last time. For years, I had imagined the end of this marriage differently. I thought it would be loud, messy, maybe even violent. But in this moment, I felt nothing except clarity. Betrayal had a way of cleaning the fog off the window, letting you finally see the truth. And the truth was simple. She had chosen her path. Now, she had to walk it alone. "Goodbye," I said. Not with anger, but finality. She didn't look up. She didn't have to. The sound of that single word was enough to crush what was left between us. Walking out of that house felt like stepping out of a storm. The night air wrapped around me, cool and alive, as if the world itself was breathing with me again. My chest didn't ache anymore. It felt lighter, freer. Karma isn't always about revenge. Sometimes it's about walking away and letting life do what it does best, balance the scales. And life did. Her affair partner ran. Her friends turned their backs. The world she built on lies collapsed on its own. As I walked down the street, the city lights shimmered in the distance, reflecting on the wet pavement. For the first time in years, the silence wasn't empty. It was peaceful.